Hey everybody, this is Caller ID. We're calling about your identity, your direction, and what you're doing with your life. I'm Brandon Davis Wells. Let's dig into what we're really doing here. When you hear Renaissance literature professor, you probably don't think about Kobe Bryant. But today's guest lives by the Mamba Mentality. Dr. Mark Rankin teaches Shakespeare and Milton. He works with 12-year-olds and he works with college students. And somehow, they've both made him better at the other. They've also made him better at understanding identity and how much hard work it takes to find it. We talk about passion, ikigai, and why standing at the center of who you are and what you're made to do is anything but easy. This is Caller ID, and I'm Brandon Davis Wells. Today on Caller ID, I'm joined by someone who's not only an exceptional scholar, but a longtime friend, Dr. Mark Rankin. Mark and I go way back. We went to high school together at the Academy, as I like to call it, Cuyahoga Valley Christian Academy in Ohio, and then ended up at Ohio University together where we were actually roommates our freshman year. And even back then, it was pretty obvious that Mark was one of the most intelligent people in the room. But what has always stood out to me about Mark is how he carries that intelligence with clarity, kindness, and humility. Today, Mark is serving as a professor of English at James Madison University. I'll let him talk a little more about that. A fellow of the Royal Historical Society, a nationally respected scholar in Renaissance and Reformation literature, the history of the book. Yeah, that's right. I said the history of the book and early English printing culture. He's published widely, many NEH grants, research fellowships at places like the Folger Shakespeare Library and the Huntington Library. But beyond that, Mark is clear, he is kind, he's direct, he's honest, and a deeply loving person. Somebody who tells the truth well, and I could tell you some stories about that, and maybe I will, and cares deeply about people. But he's also one of the smartest people I know, and one of the wisest. So one of the reasons I wanted to have him on the show today. Mark, thanks for coming on to Caller ID.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's dive right in. Your current role, Mark, and your season of work, what is that? What does it look like? What's a normal work week look like for you right now?
As you mentioned, I am professor of English, and the rank of professor is near the top of the field of academia. So it's required a process of an entry-level tenure track position at the assistant professor level and promotion from assistant to associate to full professor. My typical work week involves a great deal of balance between teaching, service, and research. And I actually have a part-time teaching job as well. Yep. I teach part-time at Redeemer Classical School. So it's a full schedule of teaching and research, mentoring students, and doing some committee work, trying to make the university a better place, trying to be a father and a husband. I'm juggling all that stuff, man.
You know, we all back in high school, going to high school together, kind of made some assumptions that you would be in the teaching profession of some kind, because it always seemed like some gifting and skill that you had. But when you're 18, did you think that this is what you would be doing?
I did not. When I was 18, you have some dirt on me, man.
I won't share too much. I won't share anything.
That's all right. Yeah, when I was 18, I was really, frankly, interested in making as much money as possible. And so I started off on a path in engineering that lasted about a year, little under a year, when I really decided that I just was miserable in it and I wasn't really interested in the topic. And so I came back to teaching via ideas. An influential teacher, it was actually John Hawley, one of our teachers.
Yeah.
He once said to me, the balance between teaching and scholarship has to do with, are you interested more in the student or in the ideas? And I decided that I'm most interested in talking with students about ideas. And so that's what sucked me towards higher ed, because at the end of the day, the ideas are why we're there, and the learning. Yeah, teaching is one of those, it's one of those professions that's an outlet for the pursuit of the rigorous pursuit of ideas. And so for me, I kind of liken my career a little bit to I'm a lake rather than a swamp. So my ideas and my work, so I pursue scholarship. I'm trying to solve questions within my field. But if I don't have an outlet for that, I do become a swamp. So I feel like the best teachers have to pour into others if they're seeking new ideas themselves, to have an outlet for that so that they could stay fresh. The flip side of that, in my view, is that the least effective professors have either the inlet or the outlet blocked.
Hmm.
So you have to keep them both open.
You started off thinking engineering, and I know you were really good at math. I know that was part of that in science, well, really educationally or subject wise. To be fair, everybody, Mark wasn't bad at any of those subjects. But what did your family think as you were thinking engineering? Because I know there's a family business, and,
Right.
and one of the stories is, and I'll tell people, is that I worked for Mark's dad in the summer a couple of years with some of our friends who owns a tool company, and it was hard work. I know that was
Oh,
part of
yeah.
the equation too.
I found myself when I was leaving high school in a rather enviable position that academically I think I could have done anything. And so I went after the money, or what I thought was the path for the money. I decided that wasn't going to be fulfilling. I think that was wise. So I decided to go with my passion, which was reading. I always loved reading, but it was always for a long time kind of second fiddle because I didn't think there was any money in it. And then once I decided to follow my passion and put that first, teaching sort of became um, the natural field, right? So academia is the highest sort of bracket of the education profession. I decided that I would, aim for that because I was always interested in hard work and rigor and excellence. I wanted to shape ideas. I wanted to help not only students but also other professors think better. So I've always been interested in helping people think better. If I wanted money, I had to go earn it. I mean, from when I was an early teenager, my first job was working for a local farmer called Bob's Farm Market. I was punching a clock at age 13, riding my bike a few miles to his place, getting down in the dirt, manure, all kinds of stuff, haymaking. And so the work for the factory was just the next stage. My family didn't pressure me to go into the family business or to go into engineering. They wanted me to follow my own path, and they've always been really amazingly supportive. So that was never actually,
Huh.
I mean, I kind of thought, yeah, I should do this because my dad would want me to, but he gave me support early on when I started to look in a different direction, and then I knew that he'd be okay.
What lessons did you learn from that you've carried on throughout your life in your career and making decisions about career?
So there's a rootedness that comes to a person who grows up on a farm. I grew up on a farm, working on a farm. Like when you say something is shitty, you know what you're talking about because you
Right.
see it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so nothing is given on a farm. You have to put in the time, you have to do your due diligence, and you have to have faith. For me, it's faith in God. The farmer still has to have faith for the rain to come, for the harvest to be there. And so I kind of grew up with a balance of faith and work that I think the farm fostered. And so working, I mean, it really showed me, I'm going to have to work for what I get. My father's a very successful businessman, as you alluded to, but I knew that there weren't going to be any handouts. Bob, the farmer, he had a time clock. I was punching a clock at age 13. I knew what that was. And then when I switched to the factory to make a little more money when I was old enough, it was very much I have to work hard, but also I don't want to work like this for my whole life. I want to find something fulfilling, something that I could use my mind. So someone will pay me for my thinking, not just how much grease is on my hands. That was me.
So I talk a lot on this podcast about the concept. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term of ikigai, and it's a Japanese term that means when the four
Mm.
concentric circles of something you love, something you're good at, something the world needs, and something you can make money at meets in
Right.
the middle. Do you feel like you're operating in that middle?
I think so. I think so. I mean, I had delusions of grandeur at first. I thought that if more people read scholarly research, that we would solve some of our problems that way. That's of course not true. But I am skilled at asking questions, at finding answers, at delving deep into rare book libraries and reading old books in recovering older, still valid ways of thinking and communicating those discoveries in a way that a thinking, clever, curious person, I believe, can understand today. So that's my approach to research. I've always thought that if I sort of do like a Kobe Bryant, like if I leave it all out there, I don't hold anything back. I mean, Kobe Bryant always impressed me that he never held anything back ever,
Mm.
not ever. And I realized if I could translate that into my professional work, then the money would come, right? People,
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, to get a job, to get a tenure track job today, and even when I started out about 20 years ago, you
Yeah.
really have to be the best,
Hmm.
and you have to be lucky as well. And I figured, well, I can control that variable, and that's where faith came in, right?
Hmm.
But I thought that if I gave it my all, I would have a chance, and I was fortunate; it worked out.
The Mamba
And I do think,
Mamba
and
mentality.
the Mamba mentality, and I really do think to the third point or the fourth point of the is it a triangle or a square? I don't know.
It's a
Uh,
quadratic four circle.
Quadratic.
Yeah,
What the world needs, we desperately need clear thinking.
yeah.
We very badly need the ability to communicate clearly about what's actually happening. And that's where I see what I do helping students because, you know, the intricacies of what I'm researching at any given moment are not necessarily the point for most people, but it's how do we actually define a problem? How do we theorize an approach to solve it? How do we then communicate that argument so that others can take it and run with it? Like that's the, I guess, workplace skill, if you will,
Yeah.
that I think a English professor can actually offer.
Well, and I think you're touching on something that is interesting. There's a difference between knowledge and information and wisdom. And so how do you
Absolutely.
how do you as a teacher, as a professor, sort of try to make that leap with folks from information to wisdom? What does that look like
So
in the classroom?
it starts with my kids.
Mm.
How do I tell my 8, 9, 10-year old? Well, knowledge is when you get 100% on your science test. Wisdom is when you a failure of wisdom is when you tell the bully that you got 100% on the science test. I mean, there's one thing to actually have the knowledge, there's another thing to how you use it. It really builds out from there. And wisdom, I have a right behind my screen here, I have a printout color photo of a medieval bookshelf, and it has a quotation on it, Proverbs 4, verse 7. And it reads, wisdom is supreme, therefore get wisdom. Though it costs you all you have, get understanding.
Hmm.
And the reason I put that there is that wisdom is something that in part can only come through life experience. How you use your knowledge, your raw talent, is really a profound question. And using it well is where you begin to get wisdom. So 2 years ago, out of the blue, I received an invitation from a friend to apply for this job teaching seventh grade at a local classical school. I hadn't taught seventh grade in more than 20 years. I'd only done it briefly in a student teaching situation in Ohio. And it was totally unexpected, but I was intrigued.
Sure.
And so I thought it would be a kind of 1 year thing. Turned out to be 2 years, turned out to be 3 years. Now he says, the principal there, you can have the job as long as you want.
Hmm.
It has rejuvenated it and even resuscitated my understanding of what is possible in education.
Wow.
Part of being wise is being open to doing the next right thing, even if it's unexpected.
Hmm.
Because I now feel like I have a synergy between teaching young adults and teaching adolescents. And I'm doing a better job teaching both groups because of the other.
Wow. That's cool. And that's
And
fascinating.
if I hadn't been open to that, if
Yeah.
I had said something like, why would a nationally or internationally renowned scholar waste his time with 12-year-olds? Well, I actually got that question in the interview for that job.
Really? What did you say?
My answer was, well, that 12-year-old is a future lawyer, a future doctor, a future pharmacist, a future whatever. I could look at that kid and see who that kid will be. And I could talk to the kid with that future version of him or herself in mind.
Hmm.
And that's how I approach it.
Was there a moment in your career where it clicked and you thought, all right, there's no more imposter syndrome. There's no more like, yeah, because you're a confident person, and I really admire that about you. Not arrogant, because there's a difference, right? I always told my students and my student athletes, hey, I want you to be confident. I don't want you to be arrogant, because that's when you get in trouble. But was there a
Right.
moment where you thought, after a certain year or class, and you said, I think this is it, and I have this. I've got it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
I mean, it took a long time. One of the challenges of the field of literature, to be a sort of scholarly practitioner in the field, is that it's a very godless field. You know, why are we doing it? We always ask ourselves, and there's a lot of very pessimistic answers out there. As I began to be successful, those doubts were always nagging. Maybe I'm just a fraud. Maybe
Right.
maybe they haven't figured out yet
Yeah.
that I'm really not as good as I think I am, right?
Yeah.
I think that coming into my 40s, when I realized, hey, I actually am successful at this.
Mm.
I published some articles that really made a really, really big impact. Once people, in other countries started writing me about my ideas, I thought, man, like I think that I've actually done this. I think I've actually achieved the goal that I set out to achieve.
Hmm.
And now I could just keep doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing to be able to be paid a decent wage to do what you love to do.
Oh, say that again. That's for sure, right?
It's
Like
amazing.
yeah, it is. And I've had some of those moments where I felt like in the center of that ikigai moment. And when you're there, it's not work. It might be, or it's not a job, or it's not tedious. It doesn't mean it's easy, but boy, when that like I've called a couple of high level football and basketball games, those kinds of things, and when you're in that moment, it is sort of like you're in that kind of zen, right? That like, yeah, I feel
Right.
like this is where I'm supposed to be.
But that being said, I think there may be a crisis right now in our country where people want that, and to sort of bring the circle around.
Yeah,
They want that kind of work without being willing to put in the work.
right.
You have to work hard. You have to do 12, 14-hour days, 15-hour days. You have to take care of your family. And then you could think about self-actualization. I really believe that. I mean, I remember so I did my PhD at Ohio State. We had those of us who were in our cohort, we had this shared office where we met with students, and there were like 8 or 9 of us in there. And I show up every day at 8 a.m., maybe a little before 8 a.m. I was ready to go. You know, the university library, I would go there, and I was there to study, right?
Yeah.
There were people like other aspiring academics, they'd roll in at like 10:30. And the reason was that they just took it slow in the morning. They were going into debt massively in order to like have this lifestyle of going to fancy restaurants with each other and all this stuff. And I thought to myself, you all don't really know what you're doing. Um, and I was really, really, really working hard. And so doing that gave me a shot at the self-actualized career, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, but you can't do that if you're not willing to put in the work.
You,
So it started for me in the farm. I mean, that
yeah,
brings it
right.
back to what you were saying. I mean,
100%.
I knew how to work hard from the beginning.
Yeah. I
I
think
was smart, but I still had to earn it.
I think everybody should work on a farm, or on a beer truck, or
Or
on
a
a
factory like
factory
you did.
floor. Yeah. One of the jobs I had was on a beer truck, carting beer around to bars, and people think that sounds kind of fun. Well, it's probably the root of why I have back issues 30 years later.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. And you said, saying yes to teaching classical education and seventh graders was a great decision, and it has been a really rewarding piece. Has there been a time in your career where you said no to something that you either regret or like, yeah, I'm glad I said no to this, even though it maybe looked like a good opportunity?
That's an interesting question.
Because those no's and those yeses, just because what I've learned lately is that just because there's an opportunity doesn't mean you say
Yeah.
yes, right? And I have fallen guilty to that a lot in my life of being excited about somebody wanting me to do something, right? And saying yes immediately. And whether it's the ADHD part of me or whatever it is, that need to be loved and respected or wanted.
I can't think of one offhand.
How about another yes that you said, oh, boy, am I glad I said yes to that from a career standpoint, whether it was studying abroad, whether it was whatever that looks like.
Right. So, I mean, there are various yeses and nos extracurricular that what you're saying definitely applies. When it comes to career, there's a gradual process of saying no to seemingly random invitations to write articles for whatever book someone wants to do. I've done some of that, but that's just because you only have so much time. I think some of the best yeses I ever made. When I was at Ohio U, we were at Ohio U together. I stayed on 2 more years to do a master's degree there. And so I was there 6 years, and I had some choices about where to do a PhD. I wanted to do a PhD. I ended up going to Ohio State, and at the time,
The Ohio
it
State.
wasn't that's right. It wasn't the clear choice for me. They were offering me less money than the University of Florida, and I had an offer on the table from the University of Illinois that I thought was more prestigious. But I chose to go to Ohio State because I was interested in this girl that I ended up marrying. And she was finishing up an undergraduate degree at Ohio. That was one of the best decisions I ever made, partly for the relationship, but also partly because I ended up switching my focus there at Ohio State and found the scholar who was the best person for studying Reformation literature at that time. His name was John King. So then I finished there,
By the way, that, that
and he
that sounds like somebody who should be studying Reformation literature. Dr. John King. Was he
John
British? Was he
John King.
was he British?
No, he was American. He was
Okay,
American.
that's too bad.
Um, he actually, I'll tell you a funny story about him.
Yeah.
So Shakespeare wrote a play called King John. It's not well known, but my friend John King, mentor then friend, signed all of his publications John N. King because he didn't want people to confuse him with Shakespeare's play in Google and bibliographical searches. Anyway,
That's great.
um, so many people who go into academia have a very workmanlike relationship with their PhD advisor, and mine was that at first. But he invited me to collaborate with him on summer seminars for college faculty that were funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities that you mentioned earlier. And at that time, these were meeting in Europe, in Antwerp, Belgium, and in London and in Oxford. And I joined him for two of those as a just hired assistant. But then his collaborator moved on, and he invited me, while I was still an assistant professor, actually, to co-direct the seminar with him. I went on to co-direct 3 seminars with him, and then he passed away, and I directed one myself that he and I had applied for before he died. Doing those programs, saying yes to that was one of the best things I ever did in my career.
Hmm.
It networked me so much. I mean, I have an international network of librarians, researchers, other professors at other universities, really high-level people that would not have ever materialized if I had not been open to doing that. Now, it required some sacrifice. It required being away from my family. It required working with him, and that was a bit of a challenge at times. And uh, and yet I've always tried to just take the best opportunity and do the next best thing, while still maintaining as much balance as possible. And so, um, and then working at the classical school was the same thing.
Let me ask you a very hypothetical question, but more about identity. Let's say James Madison, and they're not going to, but let's say James Madison closes tomorrow. God forbid. what does that do to your identity? What do you then fall back on? What do you look how do you view yourself? What does Mark do going forward?
Well, that's a great question, Brandon. My identity is not in what I do. It's taken me a long time to be able to say that. I have critical thinking and problem solving skills that I believe I can leverage to uh, to a career in the private sector somewhere. I might have to move. Uh, I'm confident that I would be okay.
Me too.
And
Just to be clear,
yet,
I am too. I think you'd be fine.
and, and
More than
yet,
fine.
and yet, I do think that that's a huge issue.
Sure.
Because it's so easy to get our sense of ourselves entwined in what we do for a living. And we have to realize that at the end of the day, I mean, for me, it's faith. I mean, I believe we were made for God. God made us to worship Him, to be in community with Him, to share that joy with others. To me, that's the meaning of life. As long as I focus on that, what I do is just what I do. Now, I love it. I'm passionate about it. I think that if you add your curiosity and your passion together, they always exceed your intelligence. I call it the CQ and the PQ,
Say
the
that again.
curiosity
Yeah.
quotient. So the curiosity quotient, the CQ, and your PQ, your passion quotient, the sum always exceeds your IQ.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard
And
that.
it doesn't matter how much raw intelligence you have. I would hire someone curious and passionate over someone who is a brainiac genius all day long because the curiosity and the passion will get you far, much farther in the long run. That's just because it's just because I love ideas. I love to be a curious person. I think people are funnest the most fun to be around if they're curious, if they're interested in things, if
Right.
they're asking questions. People are out there trying to, I don't know, as Dave Ramsey says, they're killing something and dragging it home.
And I love the concept of being curious, right? I talk about Ted Lasso all the time on this podcast and just in life. And
I know it. I know it. The
Ted
curious
says,
one, the
be
clip.
curious, not judgmental, right?
Yes. Yes. That's the
Um,
only Ted Lasso clip I've ever seen. I've never seen the show, but I know the clip.
you would love it. I would not necessarily watch it around small children. um, but it brings me to my next question, which is, I always ask folks this. The character Ted Lasso is at his best when he's coaching and he is encouraging and he's loving his team. And that's when he's in that center, that ikigai moment where it's clear this is what he is made to do, whether that's nature or nurture or both. But this is who he is at his core, is serving in those roles, right? And then on the other end of that, because I joke with my wife that that's me when I'm at my best, is Ted Lasso. And when I'm at my worst, I'm Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm. So my question to you is, when are you at your best Ted Lasso moment, and when maybe is the Larry David brought out in you in your because I talked to the doctor the other day and he said his Larry David moments are when he has a stack of paperwork, right? And he's just like, this is the bane of my existence.
Well, I'll tell you my Larry David moment is when I have to grade a huge stack of student writing. And, some of it might be composed by AI. If it's not AI, it's just bland and uninteresting, and it takes hours and hours and hours to do it well. It's the worst part of the academia job, I think. It's just a slog. I can get into, like, my brain gets all twisted, and sometimes I'll give you an example. One of my best students that I've ever taught, I don't know how this happened, but she asked me to write a letter of recommendation for her the other day, and I was going through my comments on some of her older papers. And I actually accused her of adjusting the spacing on between lines of her typed paper in order to pad the length.
Okay.
And my feedback, but then I was looking at the paper and I measured it and it was fine. And
Which, by the way, that is
as
something I would have done in college. I would have tried to pad all that.
oh gosh. And so I apologized to her. That's my Larry David moment
Okay.
when it's just get me the hell out of this.
Right.
I'm just trying to finish this stack of papers
That's
and
fair.
go have a beer.
That's fair. That was the worst
When,
part of teaching for me too.
when I'm at my best is when I'm able to connect with students, not just heart to heart, but soul to soul.
Mm.
When I can make a connection with a student who gets it. I'm trying to convey not just information and how to think and how to communicate, but how to be, that curiosity, that passion. And this is what an engaged person looks like. And you could be that. You could be an engaged person. You don't have to be lackadaisical, like, the kind you said that was what you would have done, Brandon. I'm trying to get students to see that that's not in their best
Oh,
interest.
it is
I'm,
100% not in their best interest, right?
I'm trying to get the students to see that they could be the best version of themselves if they understand how amazing learning actually is.
Yeah.
And I do that at the classical school at times and at JMU. And I'm trying something new this year to facilitate that even more. And that is no grades until the end. And conversation, oral conversation, one-on-one conferences, feedback without a grade so that the students could actually learn from themselves.
How is that going so far?
It's going well, it just started this week.
Okay.
It's going well so far.
I want to check in with you on that next year when we circle
This
back. I want to know how that goes.
Let's do it because the students right now they're saying it's a breath of fresh air.
That's awesome. I'm not surprised at that. I got time for a few more with you, Mark. I know you're a busy man. You got
Oh, good, man.
all kinds of jobs and family and all that. And I'm glad to have Dr. Mark Rankin on the Caller ID podcast today. A couple more questions for him. You talk about the importance of connecting with students. Is that the sort of legacy you want to leave when you're done with higher ed, or do you want to be in higher ed until you can't be?
It's interesting you asked that. I was talking with the principal of the classical school about this. He's a friend. He asked me the same exact question about 6 months ago. And I said to him, I said, I want one of these 12-year-olds to stand up at my funeral. They'll probably be about my age right now. They'll be 45, 50, something like that, and say, he gave himself away. That's what I want my legacy to be. And JMU is a great place, but it's a place where I do give myself away. But the nature of the modern university is such that the giving of oneself away can get sucked into the machine, the bureaucracy,
Yeah.
and whatnot. And so I'm doing the same thing there, but fewer students see it. I want them to see that in my heart. If I make some amazing discovery in a rare book library, that's another one of my Ted Lasso moments, by the way. I call them I call them fall out of the chair moments. I've had a
Okay.
few of them
Huh.
when I find something so amazing that I can't even believe it that I almost fall out of my chair. And if I share that with students, I'm giving myself away. 22-year-olds, 21-year-olds are a lot harder to reach because they're more jaded. I mean, my father says that I'm just a tree on the interstate. They're passing at 70 miles an hour.
Mm.
Whereas the younger students, there's more of a hope of reaching them. But at the end of the day, it's making a difference in the lives of students, helping them be more, connecting to the best version of themselves, as I mentioned, being passionate and curious. That's what I want my legacy to be.
I think you're on your way. I have
Appreciate it, man.
a few word association exercises for you. I'm going to just give you a couple words. I want to hear your quick thought on it. Calling,
Potentially overrated.
success,
Earned, not given.
failure,
Human. That's where learning happens.
money.
A tool, not much more.
Any last pieces of wisdom or thoughts for folks out there who are listening in order to grow in their identity, in their career, for anybody out there?
I would say resist the temptation in our 21st century society. With every fiber of your being, resist the temptation to equate your career with your identity. it will hurt you. It at best will trip you up. At worst, it could destroy you. I would say work hard at whatever you're doing. And if you're doing nothing, go find somebody to pay you to throw boxes around tomorrow. Work hard and take care of your obligations to your family first, and then seek your goals. You'll have a foundation to do it properly.
I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us today on the Caller ID podcast. That's Dr. Mark Rankin.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to the Caller ID podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe with all of your friends on all of your social media platforms. Thanks again. Signing off, Brandon Davis Wells.